is too hot. Not Texas summer hot. I'm talking about the kind of heat that lives in your bones. It's the heat of a small cutting workshop in Brazil, where the air is so thick with water, oil, and rock dust that you don't just breathe it, you wear it. My name is Tenor Diniz, and I didn't enter the gemstone world through a front door made of glass and gold. I entered through the service entrance, carrying a bucket of gray slurry. At 16, my gemstone laboratory was a workstation. Wet pavement and scorched metal. The machines hummed with a low, angry vibration that you could feel in your teeth. My job wasn't to hold the diamonds. My job was to clean the machines that shaped them. I was the one wiping the tables, refilling the coolant tanks, and scrubbing the grit out of the cracks. But while the master cutters were looking at the clocks, waiting for the shift to end, I was looking at the floor. In this business, rough is the raw stone. The good rough, the clean, saturated crystals, went. What I had access to was the trash, the overslice, the broken shards, the bits of rock that were too small, too included, or too difficult for a professional to waste their time on. That was my university. After hours, when the real guys had gone home, I'd step up to the wheel. I'd pick up a piece of rejected kunzite or a shard of rose quartz. I sat on the floor of that boat, soaking wet and shivering, realizing that in the Amazon, the earth always gets its cut. The cutting room was my elementary school. The Amazon was my trial by fire. The goal was white topaz. To the untrained eye, it looks like a bucket of clear glass pebbles, but to the industry, it's a blank canvas. Through a process of electron beam irradiation and heat, that clear stone is transformed into the electric blues that fill jewelry store windows in London and New York. But before the stones get to the high-tech labs in Germany, they have to survive the mud. We didn't have heavy-duty trucks. We had 125cc Honda CG Titans. These are small, nimble bikes, but we'd modify them with off-road tires and heavy racks. Why? Because when the rain starts in Pará, the roads don't just get wet, they dissolve. You don't drive a motorcycle through the Amazon, you wrestle it. The business model was simple but brutal. Cash before delivery. In the diamond or emerald trade, you might get memo, consignment. In the high-volume topaz trade, you bring a backpack full of cash into the forest. If the money isn't there, the miners don't even open the bags. You are walking through a lawless green wall with enough currency to buy a small fleet of cars, praying your bike's chain doesn't snap. I'll never forget the day I lost the bike. We were crossing a tributary on a voadera, a narrow wooden boat. The river was swollen with floating islands, giant logs that break off the banks during the floods. One of those logs, a 3-ton trunk of solid mahogany, clipped our side. The boat didn't sink, but it lurched. In slow motion, I watched my Honda and the 40 kilos of grated rough strapped to the back slide toward the brown water. I dove for the rack. The bike was halfway submerged. The weight of the metal was pulling me in. My brother Tommy shouted from the bow, "Let it go, Tenor. The piranhas aren't the problem, the current is." I let go. The bike vanished into the silt. I sat on the floor of that boat, soaking wet and shivering, realizing that in the Amazon, the earth always gets its cut. If the Amazon was survival school, Bangkok was the university of the world. I lived there for 12 years. It's where my daughters, Taylor and Talita, took their first breaths, and where I learned that the gemstone trade isn't just about rocks. It's about flow. Bangkok is the heart of the colored stone world. If a sapphire is mined in a hole in Madagascar, it doesn't go to Paris first. It goes to a crowded, humid street in the Siloam district of Bangkok. Every hunter has a home base. Mine was the Trocadero. From the outside, it looks like a tired commercial building. Inside, it's a vertical labyrinth. You step into a cramped elevator, and when the doors open, you aren't in an office building anymore. You're in a high-security bazaar. Behind heavy double-locked doors are the African suites. This is where the West African dealers, men from Guinea, Senegal, and Gambia, sit at long tables under daylight-balanced lamps. This is where I met Omar Mara. He was my gateway to the new Africa. One afternoon, he tossed a small parcel onto the white paper in front of me. It was topaz from Madagascar, but it wasn't the white stuff I'd chased in the Amazon. It had a champagne glow, a warmth that hinted at the massive mineral wealth waiting on that island. That stone was a seed. It would eventually grow into the Pangea theory that changed my life. But first I had to learn how to move at the speed of Bangkok. You don't survive Thailand alone. You need a fixed point. Mine was Miss Tip. In the gem world, information is more valuable than gold. Miss Tip knew who was hot, selling fast, who was cold, stuck with bad inventory, and who was light, trying to pass off synthetics. She helped me navigate the Thai bureaucracy, the work permits, and the unspoken etiquette of the trade. She taught me the table manners of the African building. Never ask the price first. Look at the stone. If you ask the price, you've signaled you're interested, and the leverage shifts. Watch the eyes, not the stone. A dealer's pupils dilate when they know they have a killer stone. The last price is a lie. In Bangkok, there is no such thing as a final price, only the price you are willing to walk away from. This was also the era when Tony met Sunil, the force behind STS. Up until then, I was a boutique hunter. I bought small, I sold small. Sunil operated at the scale of a mountain. He was one of the first to understand vertical integration. He didn't just want to buy a sapphire. He wanted to own the process from the mine in Tanzania, through the cutting floors in Jaipur, to the TV screens in the United States. Working with STS taught me about calibration. In the jungle, you care about the hero stone, the one big, beautiful gem. But in the world of mass-market jewelry, you need 10,000 stones that are exactly 6 or 4 millimeters. If one is 6.1 millimeter, the machine can't set it. If it's 5.9 millimeter, it falls out of the ring. I had to train my brain to see both, the unique soul of a one-of-a-kind rubellite and the mathematical precision of a 10,000 stone order. It was the difference between being an artist and being an industrialist. Bangkok was where I stopped being a guy who knows stones and started being a global supplier. I was learning how the nerves of the world were connected, how a handshake in a dusty office on the 10th floor of the Trocadero could put a ring on a finger in Ohio 3 months later. But as much as I loved the city, the hero stones were still out there, calling me back to the dirt. And the next call came from a man in Sri Lanka who happened to own a tiger. If Thailand is the trading floor, Sri Lanka is the gentleman's club of the gem world. It's an island built on corundum, specifically sapphires that look like they were dipped in the Indian Ocean. In Sri Lanka, you don't buy stones in offices. You buy them in living rooms. You sit on a porch, drink tea, and talk for 3 hours about family before a single stone ever touches the table. It's a game of patience. But on one trip with my brother Tony, the game changed from patience to survival. A seller had called us about a knockout, an 8-carat blue sapphire. In the world of sapphires, 8 carats is a magic number. It's large enough to be an investment piece, but small enough to be worn. But it's not just the weight, it's the cornflower blue hue. We call it velvety. It comes from tiny microscopic inclusions of rutile that scatter the light, giving the stone a soft glowing blue that seems to hum. When we arrived at the seller's house, the tension was thick enough to cut with a machete. We weren't the only ones there. Across the table sat a Thai buyer, one of the heavy hitters from Bangkok, and a German dealer who supplied the biggest houses in Europe. 3 buyers, 1 stone. The seller was in a corner. He didn't want to offend the Thai. He needed the German, and he'd already promised the first look to us. He looked at us, sweating, and then he looked toward his backyard. "I cannot choose," the seller said. "My heart is divided, so we let the spirit of the island decide. In my garden, I have a tiger. He is the protector of my house. Whoever goes out puts his hand on the tiger and returns. That is the man I sell to." The German buyer stood up immediately. "I am a businessman, not a gladiator. I'm out." The Thai buyer looked at his hands that spent all day handling millions of dollars, and shook his head. "I like my fingers where they are." I looked at Tony. Tony looked at me. Tony has a different kind of wiring. He's the kind of guy who doesn't see a wall. He sees a challenge to jump. Before I could grab his arm, he was out the door. I watched through the window. The tiger was a massive Bengal, chained but powerful, pacing the grass. Tony walked toward it, no sudden movements. No fear. He reached out and placed his palm right between the animal's ears. 1, 2, 3. The tiger didn't growl. It just blinked. Tony walked back inside, sat down, and reached for the sapphire. Later, on the plane back to Bangkok, I finally asked him, "Are you insane? That thing could have taken your head off." Tony laughed. "Tenor, look at the details. Always look at the details. While you were looking at the tiger's teeth, I was looking at the porch. I saw the man's children rolling on the floor with that cat 5 minutes before we sat down. If the kids are safe, the tiger is fed. It wasn't a test of bravery. It was a test of observation." You cannot call yourself a gemstone hunter until you have set foot in the Valley of Rubies, Mogok. For 800 years, this tiny slice of Earth has produced the finest rubies in human history. We call the color pigeon's blood. It's not just red, it's a deep fluorescent crimson that glows even in the shade. Why is Burmese ruby better than any other? It's science, not just myth. Most rubies from other parts of the world are found in iron-rich rocks. Iron is a quencher, it kills fluorescence. But Mogok rubies are found in marble, limestone. Marble is low in iron,